My father was manager of the AMC, Auckland Meat Company bookshop. I'm stuck on bookshops, as you can see. Butcher shop in Calliope Road. And we lived just along the road at number 98 it was. And he had only to walk along the road to his shop. And I can remember it was Depression time, of course, and we were never poor, but we were never affluent either, because my father had a job, you see. But I can remember that we used to have, as well, when it was winter, we used to have, there were a certain number of lovely warm old coats that used to be taken out and put on your bed, because we didn't actually have enough blankets. But we didn't know this. My little sister was born by then. She was 4 years younger than me, Val. We didn't know that. I'd have thought that everybody had a coat on the top of their bed. I can remember that mine was an ancient great coat, it must have been, and it had braid on it that went swirling round all the way up and all over the collar and round the pockets. And I used to trace this with my fingers before, and I used to think that it had probably been owned by a highwayman. I was sure that it was a highwayman's coat. We just about lived on stewed apple, I might state. Many people were still very poor. There was a big sort of apple orchard at the back of our house. My mother used to stew these apples, and we used to love this. We used to eat stewed apple all the time. And my grandmother came to live with us, I think probably because her pension helped us out a bit. My grandfather had died. They lost that lovely house in Grey Lynn in the Depression. They couldn't keep up the payments on the mortgage that they had. And my grandfather died soon after, and I loved him. I was 8 when he died. I remember him so clearly, a tall, thin man. I can remember him. I can remember him drinking out of he loved in the morning to put his hands around his teacup to keep them warm, and I used to copy him and do this. I remember that. Anyway, Grandma, whom we loved, came to stay with us, which means that Ross had to sleep on the back porch, really, which was only just sort of shielded with a bit of canvas. But he never minded, and I didn't think there was any reason why he should. And Val and I were squeezed into a room where you really couldn't get between the beds, so that my grandmother could have a bedroom, which would normally have been our front room, our best room, but it wasn't. It was Grandma's bedroom. And I remember that she used to make us girdle scones on a big round girdle element sort of thing with a handle over the top. And I learned later that you make these just almost like an old damper, you know, almost just flour and water. And of course, when they're hot, a great big wedge comes off for you, a great big hot wedge, and you open it up and put golden syrup or something like that. Things had to be very cheap. So then when we moved to Simon Street, which we thought was fascinating, really. We didn't want to leave Point Chevalier, but we loved living above a shop in Simon Street. I used to love going down Eden Terrace to it. There was a second-hand bookshop down there. It was run by an old man who was very kind to me. You know, these days your mother probably wouldn't have let you do this, would she? But it was perfectly okay. He was a lovely old man, and he ran this shop, and he found a little stool for me to sit on because I liked to sit there reading the books. And I had a look at the library once, but it looked very gaunt and big, and I knew I couldn't go, excuse me, anyway, because my father wasn't a ratepayer. Would you believe it? So I thought my little old man down in the shop was a better bet anyway, probably. So I read Westerns galore. I loved Westerns.